Next, we're up to video number 3, where we're going to be looking at a real-world wedding experience. Now, we've looked at some examples and such of how to use the WOW customer experience in our events as we're putting this together. Now we're going to look at weddings specifically.
Right.
Ron Ruth is jumping in and sharing his thoughts on the WOW customer experience. Ron, give us kind of how this works in a wedding world.
Well, I think before we go back to the video number 1, where we talked about the customer experience is about how you make the customer feel. Do they feel valued, special, important? Do they feel as though the experience was designed solely with them in mind? And having said that, when it comes to weddings, one of the first ways you can make that customer feel valued, special, important is in the sales process. Mm-hmm. Our first contact with the customer is when we sit down to talk to them about their event. And all too often, it doesn't really matter what part of this industry you represent, the wedding industry you represent. All too often, a lot of people will go immediately to, here's what I do, rather than talking about, just tell me about you. Who are you? How did you meet? When did you meet? Tell me about the background of how your relationship came to be. When did he propose? Where did he propose? Oh, show me the ring. Oh, it's so beautiful. This conversation, just in and of itself, even if you're never going to use any part of it, is just a simple way of saying, I care about you. I want to know about you. I want to be a part of this, not just somebody that's an outsider just throwing services at you. I want to be a part of this relationship as it goes on. After you've contracted them, again, we go to, I believe we talked about it in an earlier video, all too often we have a tendency to just kind of forget about that individual until it comes time for us to do our thing. What I would say to you, especially in the wedding industry, where people are planning events anywhere from a year to a year and a half in advance, stay in constant contact with them. Send them an email every month and a half or so, just to check in and say, hey, I'm here. If you need any help, I'm happy to help you. I know you're excited. I'm here. If you have any questions, I'm happy to help you. Even if you think that that's a waste of time, you'd be surprised that a customer just appreciates knowing that you checked in with them. I would even say to you, rather than making your very first meeting with them after the contract and as you're getting closer to the event, rather than making that very first meeting with them to talk about their event so much, I would use that opportunity again to sit down and maybe spend an hour or so and just talk about the two of them.
Sure.
And it's more than just developing a relationship, because again, making that emotional connection is developing a relationship. But also in this conversation, you may actually hear something that you wouldn't have normally known about that will allow you to do something amazing for this couple that they would never expect you to do. In other words, you could find opportunities to exceed their expectations in ways they never even dreamed possible. One of my favorite stories, things that I used to do as a DJ, was during the planning process was to provide pizza. Now, I know that's customer experience. Yes, it is. And here's why. So many of my couples come to a planning meeting after work, and I'm sure they do the same thing with most wedding professionals.
Right.
And coming straight from work, that means they haven't eaten. And it's much harder for anyone to focus on matters at hand if they're hungry at that moment. And that's why I always ask them in advance, what's your favorite pizza? I make the pizza available to them when they arrive. We sit, and here's the other cool thing. You'd be amazed at what you can learn about a couple over dinner, even if it's just a pizza. There's something about sharing a meal that people open up far more than they do in just simple, basic communication. A couple of the just quick examples, especially for DJs, is taking the time to do a venue walkthrough. There's going back to the first video again where I talked about how I'm a Disney geek. Mm-hmm. At Disney World and Disneyland, they have the 3 o'clock parade. And one of the questions that cast members get asked the most is, what time does the 3 o'clock parade start? Even though there's signs everywhere, it says there's a 3 o'clock parade. Now, a cast member could go Well, duh, 3 o'clock. But really it depends on where you are located on the parade route as to what time the parade's going to get to. If you're at the beginning of the parade, then yeah, it's 3 o'clock. If you're at the end of the parade, it's going to be 3:20. Even though you've been in a event, and so the cast members will tell these individuals will say, well, if you're at this part, it's 3, on this end, it's 3:30. They get this question all the time, but they always answer it in a courtesy way. That's not right. Yeah, there you go. Same thing's true with the venue walkthrough. Now, you may have been in a venue 1,000 times, but that doesn't mean the bride and groom have been there 1,000 times. So why not just take that extra little step to go to the venue with them and walk through and talk about the layout of the room, where they're going to be and how their introductions are going to be, where what door are you going to come in, where you're going to be standing once you get into the room. Just little things. Again, you're showing that you care. You're taking care of them. You don't want to put them in a position where they're going to be embarrassed or they're going to feel like they don't know what's going on. And then if you really want to add to that personal touch and that caring, go to the rehearsal. Mm-hmm. I had so many DJs go, I don't need to go to the rehearsal. No, you don't need to go to the rehearsal, but you should be going to the rehearsal. Why? Because it gives you an opportunity to continue that relationship, to let them know you care. And on top of that, you can develop a relationship with the people you're going to be working with the next day. Yep. The wedding party, the family, letting them know that you care, that they are valued, that they are special. You're not just there just to observe. No, you're there to maybe go over the events of the day, the next day with them, so they have an idea of what's going on. So those are just a few ways that you can do, you can deliver customer experience as far as weddings are concerned. There's tons more. I wish we had a lot more time, because I could probably give you 3 or 4 dozen ways that you could do it.
And we'll be jumping into more of this in our series here. This is a 9-part series where we're talking about the WOW customer experience and making your events rock with the WOW customer experience. We're going to be going, if you're watching the playlist, this will automatically go to video number 4, which is our next one. If you're watching, you just found this one, there's a link down in the description below that has the full playlist. You can go down, click on that, and see all the videos, especially video number 1, where we kind of started talking about the WOW customer experience. Next, we're going to kind of dig into the components of the WOW customer experience. So for those of you who are like, hey, this sounds great, I want to get in and start working on this, we're going to talk about some of the components in our next video, number 4.